Out of the way. Okay, everyone, hello and welcome back to another Fusion 360 tutorial. I am Mr. Delosa. I will be your host for this lesson. Today we're going to be talking about doing a circular pattern and looking at a section view using the Titans of CNC 3M parts. If you haven't already, go ahead and get the drawing and get this main body right here created. Alright, so you need to have this guy made to start with. That's going to be our starting point for this lesson. If you're not sure how to do that, back up and take a look at some of the previous lessons that we've done. Review that information before you attempt to do this one. Alright, so let's move this back over here out of the way. And so here's my part. Right, and I drew that. I'm going to go edit my sketch here real quick. 1.95 diameter, and I extruded it up 3/4 of an inch. And real quickly, I want to point out this is one of those times where you can see I have my center of my circle fixed on the origin in my workspace here. All right, if you didn't do that, if you just drew a circle, say over here somewhere, and dimensioned it, and your sketch is not fully defined, and your circle is blue, and you can click on it and drag it and move it around, right, you might want to fully define it to your origin before going on, because that's going to come in real handy here in a second. Okay, I don't actually want this shape here at all, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, exit that. Look at my extrude, verify it is 0.75 inches, which is what the drawing called for. So that's everything that's shown to us on page 1. All right, everybody should be able to do that at this point. So let's look at page 2. Now it gets a little more interesting. All right, there's a lot of information here. This might look different than something that we've seen before. Okay, quick pause for coffee. And now that we're back in the game, let's talk about, all right, so you can see from this picture they're chamfered holes. They have threads. All right, we have our thread call out here. We have our thread depth. Right, it says there are 6 of them. And then we have this part right here, this 1.626 BHC. All right, so this is telling us the diameter of the circle that the bolt hole centers are on. All right, so you can see this little crosshair in my bolt hole. That is marking the center of the circle. Zoom in here a little bit on my drawing. All right, so this guy is marking the center of my circle. This circle out here, notice it's broken up. It's not a complete line. It has these little breaks in it, right? So that's telling us it is just there for reference. It is not actually a physical feature that we're going to make in our part. All right, it's just a reference point. This circle, this reference circle, has a diameter of 1.626, and all of our other parts, or other bolt holes rather, are centered on that line. Okay, so what this is going to look like in Fusion, minimize that. I'm going to start a new sketch. I'm going to select the top face of my part. Okay, and now, because I centered my part on the origin, I have a really convenient center point to start from. So I'm going to press C on the keyboard to bring up my circle tool. And I'm going to place my center of this circle right here. I'm going to stretch it out really big just to start with. All right. I like to just throw the geometry on the screen and come back and dimension it later. All right, so let's go get the dimensioning tool. And click on that, and we'll say that diameter is supposed to be, I already forgot. Let me go back and look. It is supposed to be 1.626 inches. All right, 1.626 inches in diameter. And let's see, I'm going to pause my recording. I got a visitor. Okay, just somebody coming up to pick up a sweatshirt they forgot, and we're going to get back to work here. Okay, so just like that, it's located and sized. It turned black, so it is everything it needs. Because this is just a reference geometry, sorry, having a hard time speaking today. What we're going to do is hit escape to get rid of my dimension tool. Oh, I had a different window activated. There we go. And then I'm going to click on my geometry and press X on the keyboard. All right, X will turn it up, and you'll notice up here on my sketch palette, it says Options Line Type, and Construction is now highlighted. All right, so we have over here Center Line. All right, so if I click that, it turns solid again. It's the same thing if I press X. Okay, so now it's just a dashed line, which tells me that's just reference geometry. It's not actually, we're not going to cut this circle into our part. So that's the first step to locating our bolt holes. I'm going to verify that, ta-da, my sketch is fully defined. Great, so we'll say finish sketch. I'd like to come over here and rename the sketch. I'll just rename this real quick. Let's say PD bolt hole circle. Bolt hole circle, BHS. EHC, sorry. All right, get that out of my way. And there it is, you can see my circle. Now, just like when we did our other bolt holes, with Fusion, I like to use the hole tool now that I've learned how to use it. When I was an early adopter of Fusion 360, I didn't like the hole tool because there was no such thing in SolidWorks, which I was using before. But now that I've gotten comfortable using the hole tool with Fusion, I'm learning. It's really a great tool. So, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do this same thing back in this sketch. Let me open this up, and I'm just going to add a point to my bolt hole circle sketch. I'm going to create, I'm going to say point. All right, now I can click and add a point here somewhere. And I'm going to click, and you see that blue X? All right, now I have a crosshair by my cursor, and it turns blue and turns into an X, rotates a little bit. So that's going to place my point on this circle, which is what I want. So I'm just going to click right there. Boom. Now I'm going to hit escape to get rid of my point. And there is my point, right? And if I try to click it, well, if I hover, you see this icon here shows up to tell me that it is coincident. That means it's stuck on the circle. So I can move it anywhere on the circle that I want, but I can't take it off of that circle, which is what I want. I also want to put it perfectly at the 12 o'clock position directly above the center. So I've got it selected. I'm going to go up here and get horizontal vertical, and then I'm going to select that point right there. All right, so now these two things have to be aligned vertically, and that point has to stay on the circle, which means it is now fully defined. And you can see my dot turn black. All right, it knows exactly where in space to be, and it is a point. It has no size. Points are infinitely small. All right, good coffee. Okay, so now I'm going to finish sketch again. Now I've got my bolt hole circle and my point. So it's time to bring out my hole tool. And we'll say placement is going to be from sketch, and we'll click on that point right there. And we get that giant hole. It's okay. We're going to fix it here in a second. And then let's go back over to my drawing. And let's see, I wanted a 1032 UNF with a 375 depth. So I'm going to say I want to be a tapped hole, and let's go to size and see if I can find number 10. There we go, number 10 right there. 1032 UNF. Did it say 1B, 2B? Specify. Let's go back and look at the drawing again. 2B it says. Okay, so we'll make this says 2B, right hand. Make sure we tell it to model them. All right, what else does my drawing have for me? Let's go look at, where is it? Oh, there we go. I should just keep this up on the other window. And my drawing said, oh yeah, thread depth of 0.375. So let's go over here and tell this thing, okay, I need my thread depth to be 0.375. All right, you see my hole sort of adjusting. Okay, and then we're going to say, if I add an offset, that adds like a whole bunch of, so I could do 0.375 for my thread depth here by just changing this to an offset hole, 0.375. All right, which means that this depth, oh, that's the offset from the top. Wrong one. Sorry about that. 0.375, and then we'll say we're actually going to drill 0.4 total depth. All right, so we have a little bit of space in the bottom for chips and things to land. Our threads are going to go 0.375 deep. All right, this is a little bit extra. If you get a threaded hole for this point in your CAD career, and you get this depth 375 with the correct thread pitch in there, we're okay. All right. If you want to go the extra mile, if you're interested in learning to do this well, maybe you want to do this for a living someday, then we should put in those offsets. And if you're going to take engineering 2, we want to start thinking about leaving room in the bottom of our hole so that when we go to run the tap in there, the chips have somewhere to go, right? Because if the hole fills up with chips, then the tap can't get down there deep enough to make the threads. And the other thing our drawing said is that it should have a chamfer on those holes. Back to my drawing, and it says a 205 chamfer diameter. Go over here and tell it it's going to be a countersink hole with a 0.205 diameter on that. All right, that gives me that counter diameter, 205. That'll do. Okay, and that should be good then if we just say okay. Bam, there's my hole. All right, I've got a nice chamfered edge on my hole. Go to inspect, make sure I get 0.205 diameter on that. Okay, looks good. All right, you can look inside and see there's a little bit of space down there. That might not realistically be enough, but you can see the threads end before the very bottom of the hole, and we have that drill point shape going into the material. Okay. So let's go back to my main view, and we are looking at only one hole here, right? But we needed to have 6 of them, so that's where the pattern comes into play. All right, so I'm gonna go look at a top view, flip this guy around. I like to put it at 12 o'clock. It's just nice for me, but it won't matter here in a second. So let's do a pattern. To do a pattern, we're going to go to Create, and we're going to go to Pattern, and we're going to choose Circular Pattern. Okay, and now we get the little pattern toolbar, right? And we can switch types. Oh, actually, I meant rectangular. Okay, so now I can follow straight lines, or we can even have some arbitrary path to follow. We want circular pattern. The objects that we're going to be patterning, is that a word? Oh man, this is why they don't want me to be an English teacher. The objects that we're going to make a pattern out of, maybe that's better. Anyway, we're going to do features, all right? 99 times out of 100, I select features for object type, all right? If you select bodies or faces, you're going to get some weird results. So if you go to do your pattern and it doesn't look, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. First thing you should check and go back, what kind of object were you selecting? And make sure you are on feature, okay? And the next thing is we're going to come over here and we're going to select our hole. We can click it right here. Sometimes what I like to do, and this is just as a check for myself, is I'll come down here to the timeline and select the hole down here on the timeline, right there. And the reason that I do that is because if I forgot to select feature up here, and say it was on faces, and I try to come down here, right, well, I guess it still does let me. It didn't used to. Okay, never mind that. But anyway, sometimes I feel like it's just easy to accidentally click a face right here. Oh no, I meant that hole. Now I have the whole thing selected. All right, I'm gonna go over here, deselect everything. All right, so hit that little X again. Let me show you. If I click, oh, I got too many things. You know, okay, let me just take a breath. Let's back up. Come over here to objects. It says I selected 2. I don't want 2, so I'm going to press the X. They all go away. We're going to try again. Okay, so now let's go select my object, and I'll just click it here this time. All right, and so now I have to tell it an axis. Where are we going to circle around. What am I going to follow with my pattern? Okay, so to select an axis, I can select any surface that goes in the correct direction. So I'm just going to select the outside edge of my circle right here, all right, because I want to follow. And you'll notice now I didn't select this construction line. I could, if I turn that sketch on so it's visible, let me deselect my axis, and then I could use that as my axis, right? Anything that makes a circle will tell it, okay, follow the circle, and the holes are going to stay connected to this construction line because this first one is. All right, so if this first one wasn't, then your other ones are also going to have a problem. All right. So next thing is I do want to go a full 360 degrees, and I want a total of 6 holes. All right, and then we'll just leave that on adjust. We'll just say okay. And voila, just like that. 6 holes, all made in a pattern. All right, turn that sketch off. There is my part. Okay, so that is the video on circular patterns. Go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next part. We'll look at our drawing and talk about what on earth is going on in this page here with this whole split and this. What am I looking at? What is this? Okay, all right, we'll save that for the next video. You guys get your bolt holes patterned correctly before you move on to that.